Horizon Television. We are everywhere.
The United Nations Children's Fund, Unicef, has called for increased support for efforts to prevent and respond to grave violation against children, as well as for scaling up the documentation of such violations. UNICEF, in a statement released in Abuja on Tuesday, revealed that over the past 5 years, the Western Central African region has consistently had some of the highest number of unverified violations against children in armed conflicts, according to the data released in a new UNICEF publication. Since 2016, 21,000 children verified by UN has been recruited and used by armed forces and non-state armed groups in the Western Central African region. Also, more than 2,200 children have become of sexual violence, while more than 3,500 children were abducted, with 1,500 incidents of attacks on schools and hospitals recorded. It's noted further that since the beginning of the year, 25,000 attacks have been carried out on schools in Nigeria, with 1,440 students abducted. While lamenting the impact of crisis on Nigerian children, it stated that the protracted conflict that have been raging in the northeast of Nigeria for 12 years have witnessed the death, maiming, abduction, displacement, and multiple violations of human rights of thousands of children. Fung Wing, UNICEF Chief of Maiduguri Field Office, stressed the need for children to be given the opportunity to grow, learn, work, and contribute to the healthy future of the country. That can only happen if they are protected from violence and the worst of conflicts,
as well as authorities at the community level and communities and religious leaders. So we are working very closely. For example, in 2017 we worked very closely with the Joint Task Force, Civilian Joint Task Force, to make sure that they are removing children from their military and armed ranks. So to date, since 2017, 2,000 children have been removed from these ranks, and that is a huge achievement for us. We're also working very closely with that civilian task force to make sure that they put child protection lens through their work. So that's to say that they have child protection units within their ranks to also explain from the top commanders to the lower rank commanders that no children shall be recruited nor being used within the armed groups. So we're working very closely with the Ministry of Justice. We're working very closely at the different military apparatus to make sure that children will not be used. You might also be aware that recently here in Abuja, in Nigeria, we had the Safe School Declaration. This is a conference that brought everyone together from different countries, but it was hosted here in Nigeria. Back several years ago, the Nigerian government actually signed off on this, on the Safe School Declaration.
Nigerian children, whether they are the direct target of violence or collateral victims of conflict, are caught up in the ongoing insecurity we're seeing across the country. This is unacceptable.
Impediments to humanitarian access, as well as attacks against schools and facilities, health facilities. So we want to highlight the fact that this situation, despite monitoring and reporting, it hasn't gone down. And we want to make sure that government, civil society groups, those responsible, armed groups, that they're aware of this. And we are looking at this very closely because these are huge, grave violations against children, and it is not right. It is time that we not only monitor and report it, but to do something against that, to make sure that these children's rights are not violated.
Similarly, Marie Perry Poiria, UNICEF Regional Director for West and Central Africa, said mental health and psychosocial support for children and adolescents are essential and at the heart of UNICEF humanitarian response, adding that when provided with the necessary care and psychosocial support, access to schooling, and access to livelihoods, children are able to process what they have experienced and rebuild their lives. UNICEF, however, called for all partners, including relevant governments and donors, to intensify their effort to secure adequate financial and technical resources to ensure that grave violations are reported and verified, and for support for children affected by conflict. It also called on parties, the conflict in the region, to prevent and end grave violations against children and to ensure perpetrators are held accountable. In 2005, the United Nations Security Council passed Resolution 1612 to establish a United Nations mechanism for monitoring and reporting on 6 grave violations against children during armed conflicts. The violations include killing and maiming of children, recruitment and use of children, abduction of children, rape and other forms of sexual violence committed against children, attacks on schools and hospitals, and denial of humanitarian access. And since its establishment, 1 out of 4 of the verified grave violations in the world has been committed in West and Central Africa. Last year alone, over 6,400 children were victims of 1 or more grave violations in the region, according to Unicef. Since 2015, over 4.3 million children have been reached with direct mental health and psychosocial support. It further stated that more than 52,000 children associated with armed forces and groups were reached with support for community integration, while 65,000 children received support for family tracing and reunification. Also, nearly 183,000 women, girls and boys benefited from interventions to prevent and respond to gender-based violence, including case management, legal aid, health care, protection, education, and life skills programs.
Present television. We are everywhere.